Today on Blue 58, the Packers have had a very busy start to free agency with big names leaving Green Bay and donning the green and gold. Let's break it all down.
Blue 58!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Blue 58, the one and only podcast of thepowersweep.com. I am your host, John Meerdink, and I am very happy to be with you here for another episode. We have a lot to cover. The idea was to start our draft preview today because, well, we didn't expect the Packers to be this active to start free agency. And yet here we are with the Packers having signed two of the biggest names on the free agent market this time around. We're going to start with the people leaving Green Bay and then talk about the people who have come to Green Bay so far with, I guess, a little bit of Keyshawn Nixon in there as well because he's kind of neither leaving nor going, just staying. But first and foremost, kind of in the order that it happened, Devondre Campbell leaves the Packers. That's the first bit of news to break. He hasn't actually technically left yet. They can't officially announce the cut until the start of the league year, and then it won't take effect until June 1st because he's been designated as a post-June 1st cut, which means that the cap savings for the Packers won't be realized until the cut is official. But basically this works out to being your draft class savings. The dead cap gets split over 2 years doing it this way. Look, the writing was kind of on the wall here. It wasn't a great 2022 or a great 2023 for Devondre Campbell. But as I want to do with each of these guys departing the Packers, I want to share some of my favorite memories about them. Two really good ones for Devondre Campbell, I think. First, an individual play, his pick six in 2022 against the Washington Commanders was pretty exciting. Any defensive touchdown is a great play in my book, and that was one of the best of the season there. And then I think just generally speaking, people forget how good he was in 2021. 2021 already a deceivingly long time ago, and what a year for out-of-nowhere free agent signings, too. Rasul Douglas claimed off the Cardinals practice squad, a great one that year. Whitney Merciless coming along that year as well. And, of course, Devondre Campbell, the biggest of all of them, 11 ball hawks that year. And not to pick at old scabs, but just think how close the Packers were to being both really, really good and really, really healthy in the 2021 playoffs. The big storyline heading up to that loss to the 49ers was that the Packers were bringing back a lot of their high-caliber players who had been hurt. Zadarius Smith coming off injured reserve, Whitney Merciless coming back, Josh Myers getting back in the lineup late in the season, Jair Alexander coming back from injury. Randall Cobb was dinged up in that game. If the Packers beat the 49ers, they're heading to the NFC Championship game with a pretty loaded roster. And kind of a subtext from that game is that the Packers were still pretty dinged up from the way that the season ended, and even getting those guys back didn't get them over the finish line there because it was just, I think, a little bit too little too late. But Campbell's certainly a part of that very, very good 2021 Packers defense. The next shoe to drop there was David Bakhtiari, caught outright by the Packers, the least surprising of the moves that they've made. Nets the Packers about $20 million in cap space right away. I think the reaction to this one is predictably muted, a foregone conclusion. I think most of us kind of understand that. There was some hope that he could come back, but I think we've been in the hope phase for David Bakhtiari for a while, so really not all that surprising to see him go. My favorite Bakhtiari memory goes all the way back to the beginning. So Brian Bulaga gets hurt on family night in 2013. The news breaks soon after that he's done. And then Bob McGinn writes a column that basically says, hey, I know it's sad to lose Brian Bulaga. We all love Brian Bulaga. But no worries, this Bakhtiari kid is the real deal. And there are very few times when he was kind of in his heyday that Bob McGinn would go out on a limb for a player like that. But he went to the mat right away for Bakhtiari. And then the next day, there's a press availability in the locker room. David Bakhtiari speaks. For a rookie, he was as cool, calm, and collected as you could imagine a guy being in the position that he was. And I remember watching that interview and thinking, boy, this guy's either legit and he's as good as he thinks he is and as everybody else seems to think he is, or he's too dumb to know about how bad a situation he's in and things are going to go really, really badly, really, really quickly. And it turns out he was legit, and then he was one of the best offensive tackles in the league for a long time. And it's unfortunate it ended the way that it did, but everything comes to an end, and this is just the circle of life in the NFL. Before we get to Aaron Jones, John Runyan signs a big deal with the Giants. I thought he would get mid to low tier starting guard money, but he gets $17 million guaranteed. That's fantastic news for John Runyan. I do not have a favorite John Runyan memory. But Aaron Jones, it stings. It stings even understanding that this is how it goes most of the time. And just running through how it felt, the online reaction, rending of clothes, gnashing of teeth. Look, let me just put it to you this way. This is what it felt like and sounded like a little bit in my head.
Love under center. And here's the handoff to Showtime. Left side.
You're the chosen one. Said that you would destroy this.
Jones. Look at that balance. Aaron Jones. See ya.
On Will Harris as Aaron Jones breaks loose.
Aaron Jones. He's headed for the end.
Not true. That's impossible.
Jones again, running left, running up the middle, and running in for a touchdown.
Ron, where are you? I'm in a glass case of emotion.
Look, is that the worst thing I've ever made? It's up there. It's right up there near the top. But of course, it's sad. And on a darkly funny note, it's kind of amusing to me that after a few years of assuming that he'd be gone, either before a contract extension or when it looks like things are getting to kind of the crossroads between, value and dead cap and all that, or just getting older, after a few years of assuming he'd be gone, this year I assumed he'd be back, and then now he's gone. This is the latest and final edition in a long-running series we can call John is Wrong About Aaron Jones. One final and last time. Of course, the timeline appears to be important here. Early in the offseason, Brian Gutekunst said that Aaron Jones would absolutely be back. The last time he spoke at the Combine, in retrospect, he softened that a little bit. And then that brings us to last week. According to Rob Demovsky, quote, Friday, Jones and his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, informed Gutekunst and Vice President of Football Operations Russ Ball, the team's contract negotiator, that they would not take a pay cut as sizable as the one the Packers had proposed. The Packers didn't want to leave Jones hanging over the weekend, so they essentially told him they would have to move on and turn their attention elsewhere, end quote. According to Matt Schneidman of The Athletic, the proposed pay cut was about 50%, essentially going from $12 million to $6 million for the year. Matt later added a little bit of additional context to that, said the Packers' proposal was a $4 million base salary and $2 million in incentives. The Vikings deal ends up being $6 million base with $1 million in incentives. The Packers were a couple $1 million apart with Aaron Jones, and I think that's what it comes down to. Not far apart, but it also doesn't sound like there was a whole lot of negotiation. It still stings. It stings a lot, and it's sad that it's how this ends for almost everybody, but it's the way things go. Everything kind of has to end badly, otherwise it would never end, and that's part of sports. And I think that's what makes sports good in a way, is that things have to end. There's a preciousness to having great players on your team because they're not going to be there forever. You know they're not going to be there forever. I know they're not going to be there forever. The period of greatness that you get to witness is, by its very nature, short and fleeting, and you may never see it again. You may never see another player quite like Aaron Jones. In fact, you'll never see another player exactly like Aaron Jones, and that's what makes all of this so cool, is the uniqueness of it all. And he was a unique, singular player in Packers history. If I had to boil it down to one moment or one play, rewind to the 2019 season, the Packers are kind of in the mix for one of the top seeds in the playoffs late. They need a win over the Vikings right there near the end of the season to really seal it. And on Christmas Eve, the Packers are playing in Minnesota, and Aaron Jones gets off to a little bit of a rough start. After the game, we learned that Anthony Barr tells him, get off the field, the lights are too bright for you. As it turns out, they were not. Aaron Jones goes for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns, one of which was a late game 40-something yard game-sealing long touchdown run. And I love that play because it's not one of those plays that looks like from the get-go it's going to be a touchdown. There's no gaping hole. There's no Aaron Rodgers rolling out, and you just know that there's somebody deep downfield waiting for him to find him there. It's just Aaron Jones taking a handoff out of shotgun, going right to left, and then he just kind of keeps going, and then he picks his way through some traffic, and suddenly he's on the sideline, and he's behind everybody, and he turns on the jets and is down the sideline, and away he goes for a touchdown. that's kind of Aaron Jones in a nutshell. Just he reminds me of a couple of different lines that I read in Sports Illustrated back when they were the great publication in sports. There was something in the late 90s or mid-90s, I guess, where someone was trying to describe Barry Sanders and how he ran. And they said that he was like water, just flowing downhill. He didn't run, he flowed. He just kind of oozed into the right spot and moved so fluidly into a hole and into an opening in the defense that you couldn't even really make your brain understand how he moved. And there was another publication in the now early 2000s about Chris Johnson of the Titans and later of the Arizona Cardinals, just magnificent speed. And they talked about him like he's one of those little fish that you see in the shallows of a lake or a pond, who you look at them and it looks like they're just sitting so still. And then you put your hand in the water and like in a flash, they turn and they're gone and you can't ever see them again. Aaron Jones has both of those qualities, a fantastic balance, always flowing to the right spot. And if you try to grab him or get your hand on him, just he'll flit away and he's gone. And that is Aaron Jones and what he was with the Green Bay Packers. Of course, part of the reason for the departures was to make room for new guys coming in. The Packers made a couple of sizable moves in free agency so far. Keyshawn Nixon re-signing, I guess, is technically a major move given the amount of money that they're throwing at him. We all know Keyshawn Nixon. We know what he brings to the Packers. But the two big moves that we need to talk about are the Packers signing Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. So first, Jacobs, the first shoe to drop there, comes when it looks like he would have been a great compliment to Aaron Jones, but Jones released then later, well, you all know what happened there. But Jacobs, 5'10", 223 pounds, comes over from the Las Vegas Raiders, and he really fits what Brian Gutekunst has been talking about this offseason in looking for a bigger back. He has been interested in a bigger back for a while. They've sniffed around guys like Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley, and Jacobs, though he is not tall, certainly is a big-bodied back, much bigger than Aaron Jones, 30 pounds-ish bigger than Jones. 2019 first-round pick by the Raiders, selected with one of the picks they got from the Bears in the Khalil Mack trade, which is a fun twist to that. If he would turn out to be a great player for the Packers, that would be maybe some karmic retribution to the Bears somehow. I don't know. It feels like it is. Went 3 picks after Darnell Savage in that year's draft as well. He's been quite productive in his NFL career so far. 3,000-yard seasons, led the league in rushing in 2022 with over 1,600 rushing yards. Bit of a down year in 2023, any way you slice it. 805 yards on 233 carries. Did miss 4 games. Rough year for the Raiders last year. I think you can attribute a lot of Jacobs' down year performance to just the Raiders being down last year in general, and we'll probably tug on that thread a little bit more over the next few days and weeks as we try to figure out what's real and what isn't real about Jacobs. Contract-wise, 4 years, $48 million, which has got to be one of the fakest $48 million contracts you will ever see, according to Packers capologist Ken Ingalls. Do we call him capologist, cap enthusiast, cap student, cap monitor? All sorts of great descriptors for Ken Ingalls. But the cap hits work out as follows. $5.4 million for 2024, $9.3 million for 2025, $6.25 million for 2026, and $3.125 million for 2027. What's that tell you? Basically, it's a 2-year deal and then year to year after that, as most deals actually end up being. But a lot of the money for Jacobs is tied up on the back half there. The short-term cash flow is about 2 years, $25 million. Look, spending in free agency on a running back is not my favorite thing in the world. But if you're going to do it this way, this is not a bad way to do it. You're getting a guy that I think fits really well with what the Packers want to do. You're not absolutely breaking the bank to do it. And a lot of the contract control is still in your wheelhouse there. So let's talk about the fit. I think he fits with the Packers in 2 ways. One that doesn't matter and one that does. The first that doesn't really matter is that basically he's what Brian Gutekunst has been looking for a long time. And that seems to be what I would describe as a very classically styled running back. Josh Jacobs is going to line up in the backfield and he's going to run the ball. That's what he does. Alignment-wise, he hardly ever leaves the backfield. He's not the sort of back that you split out as a wide receiver. He's not a split back that you motion out into the slot. Just for one data point, in 2022, his last really fully healthy season, Aaron Jones lined up in the slot for 59 snaps. In his career, 5 seasons, Josh Jones has done that 52 times. But along those lines, this is what Gutekunst seems to want. Maybe a little bit of a reductive way to look at it. So maybe let's look at it in a way that makes some more sense. Pure strategy. Matt LaFleur's run game is changing. It has changed the past couple seasons. They're doing less outside zone and more gap and man and duo. Think power running with pulling guards and lead blockers versus the historically pure outside zone type stuff that the Shanahan tree is really known for. Aaron Jones' usage has changed accordingly. Using Pro Football Focus's charting data on run direction, you can break it down basically by the 4 directions they have that running, or that, well, I guess it's 8 directions because you can go right and left, but you can go up the middle, which is near center, off guard, off tackle, or they just say out wide. If you use the middle and off guard as inside runs and off tackle and wide as outside runs, Aaron Jones' inside run usage has been increasing. It spiked dramatically in 2023, while his outside run usage has been declining somewhat, and it really shifted dramatically in 2023. For the first time since 2018, he broke 50% on inside runs this past season. 55.8% came inside last season, just 44% were outside. Even if he was effective at this in 2023, I think we can all agree that it's not necessarily an ideal use for him, especially as he gets banged up a little bit more and ages. But it is a great fit for what Josh Jacobs does. More than half of his runs the last 2 years have been in a gap scheme, which is a departure for what the Packers have been doing, though they've been heading that direction more. He was up near 70% in 2022, and most importantly, he's always primarily been a between-the-tackles runner. Never in his career has he had fewer than 50% of his carries come between the tackles. In fact, last year was the fewest we've ever seen from him. 52.4% of his runs came inside. Prior to that, it's 56% in 2022, 58% in 21, 53% in 20, and all the way up to 60% back in 2019. This is what he does, and he does it well. If this is what the Packers want to do, they align really well there, in addition to the fact that he is younger and a little bit less tread off the tires than Aaron Jones is. So the bottom line is this could be a good or a bad signing, as all of these things are. The ways it could be good is that if Jacobs is just what he's been so far, this is what the Packers seemingly want to do more and more. This is what Jacobs is good at. He's younger. He's apparently less injured than Aaron Jones, though he has missed a few games in his career, including 4 last year. It seems like a really good alignment of all those things there. Just getting younger, maybe more explosive at the position, but also a really good fit for what they want to do schematically. It could be bad if you want to worry about age and wear and tear a little bit. He is heading into his age 26 season, and his career touches are almost identical to Aaron Jones despite playing 2 fewer years. It's less than 100 either way. It's pretty darn close in terms of how many touches they both have. But I think we can resolve those concerns just a little bit. There is a lot of scholarly research out there, which I will hopefully have some time to write about this week, so keep an eye out on that, on the Power Sweep for that. There's a lot of research that suggests a running back's pure peak is between ages of 21 and 25, with a smaller plateau at ages 26 to 27, and then things decline significantly after that. There is less evidence about things like wear and tear actually adding up over time. It's more to do with age than how many carries that you've had. Most of the research suggests that it's really how old you are biologically that affects when you will decline more than how many carries you've really had. One paper I did read put it at about 1,750 career touches or so when you could expect a guy to start declining. So Jacobs is getting close to that. But I think the bottom line here is that Jacobs' first 2 years with the Packers are going to coincide with what the math generally says should be his last couple real big, good years of productivity. And then the Packers are year to year after that. Jacobs is year to year after that. It seems like a good alignment of contract and need and what the Packers want to do. This could be really interesting for the Packers. The second big signing is the Packers bringing over Xavier McKinney from the New York Giants. 6 feet tall, 201 pounds, in his 5th year, heading into his 5th year. 2020 second-round pick by the Giants, 36th overall that year. Signs a 4-year, $68 million deal with the Packers. I have not seen the full details yet. They're not super important to me, but one bottom line thing there is that he will be, by some measures, a top 5 paid safety in the NFL, which is the sort of thing that matters to players and agents and stuff like that. So good for him if that's what he was looking for. The fit is very interesting in Green Bay. He's really a very versatile safety. Has played all over the place. Pretty even split in 2023 between doing stuff deep and playing near the line of scrimmage. He's always done a lot of stuff in the slot or in the box. Just moves a lot in the defenses that he's played in, even dating back to college. That is a contrast to Darnell Savage, who for most of his Packers career, though he did moonlight in the slot, was primarily a deep safety. So McKinney moves around a little bit more. He does make plays on the ball when he is healthy. 15.5 ball hawks in 2023, down to 7 in 9 games in 22, back up to 15 in 2021 when he was healthy again, and just 2 in 6 games in 2020. So a versatile piece who makes plays on the ball when he's healthy and was one of Pro Football Focus's top-graded safeties at the free safety spot last season as well. I think if you're looking for how this can be good for the Packers, you've got your anchor in the secondary here. Jeff Hafley wants his safety, wants a guy who can range and make plays and be all over the place. You seem to have that. It also helps you make draft decisions. You don't have to necessarily get the deep guy. You can focus on just getting a guy that's going to play close to the line of scrimmage exclusively, which seems to be another big factor with what the Packers want and what Jeff Hafley historically wants. As an interesting aside there, Justice Mosqueda and Tyler Brook of Acme Packing Company in the podcast they did nearly a month ago now talked about some of the draft needs related to what Jeff Hafley would be looking for. Both of them kind of concluded, and I thought this was very interesting, that it might be easier to draft the close to the line of scrimmage. Basically, call it, well, if we're gonna stick a name on it, let's call it the Cam Chancellor role, because that's who the Seahawks had playing that role in Seattle, and that's where this scheme really originates from. Because Gus Bradley left Seattle and taught it to Robert Saleh with Jacksonville, who took it to San Francisco and ran it there, and now runs it with the Jets. And then D'Amico Ryans run something similar to this. But they historically are really splitting their safeties. They want one deep safety, so you have that middle of the field close coverage. And then you have your drop-down safety, your insert guy, your quasi-linebacker playing in the box, whatever terminology you want to use. But that was the Cam Chancellor role. Justice and Tyler hypothesized that it might be easier to find that kind of guy because there are so few teams running that kind of scheme right now that are really looking for that kind of role. So I guess the economics in a sense might work in your favor if that's the sort of safety that you're looking for, because there just aren't that many other teams that are looking for that kind of role or player to fill that role at safety. So if that is a need the Packers have heading into the draft, they may be in good shape here, especially now that they've got McKinney, who can theoretically at least play that deep safety role and really lock things down on the back end. That seems to open things up elsewhere. You can really just focus on filling one role, and it's one role where the Packers may not have all that much competition, especially as we head towards the draft and maybe even the later waves of free agency. You never know who you could pick up that could fill that kind of role. Now, if this signing is going to go bad, I think the contract is one where this could go amiss. Now we don't have the full details. Again, I don't have the full details yet on exactly how this breaks down cap wise. But if he is merely good and not a top 5 caliber safety, this could end up being an albatross of a contract. However, the way the cap has been moving, the cap space the Packers have opening up in 2025, even after these deals hit the books next year, I don't think we need to worry about that all that much. And on a 4-year deal, if the salary structure is at all similar to what we see from Josh Jacobs here, it's going to be 2 years where you're committed to McKinney, and then probably year to year after that, you can weather that storm. The doom and gloom over the cap, it's not ever really that hard to get out of cap hell if you just commit to doing it for a year, which is what the Packers did in 2023 and will do again in 2024 a little bit. They're going to have about $50 million at least of dead cap on their sheet this next year, but that's just how things go when you've got to sit down and finally take your lumps a little bit. But once you're out of it, you can turn it around really quickly as long as you're disciplined. And the teams that have not been disciplined are the ones that languish for a long, long time. But hey, it's not my money. It's not your money. And it seems like a good allocation of the money that the Packers have spent to spend it on their biggest position of need, going out and getting the consensus top safety on the market. That seems like a win to me. And hopefully it's a win that will carry the Packers to success with Jeff Hafley on defense for a long time to come. That's all I've got for you in this episode of Blue 58. I appreciate you tuning in. I would appreciate it even more if you'd take a second and share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it. That's going to help more people find the show and get more people involved in this conversation you and I are having about the Green Bay Packers, which in turn is going to help all of us, me included, become smarter Packers fans. And as I always say, smarter Packers fans are better Packers fans, and better Packers fans are what we all want to be. I'm your host, John Meerdink. We'll see you next time on Blue 58.